Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Pearl Divers seminar of Buckminster College and CLEA, the Interdisciplinary Research Center of the Free University in Brussels. We are recording. We will be putting the talk and the discussion online. And our talk today and our topic today is a new arrival on the planet, which has been registered not so long ago, and like it's been kind of heralded for decades, it seems, but without much belief that it might happen. And then, one day it turned out that there is something interestingly new happening. So you know that the topic we will be speaking about the artificial intelligence entities, like hopping around and interfering with all our human affairs. And our particular context here is, what does it mean for education? And like since we are starting the school, preparing the curriculum, and that was exactly the year where this happened, we had this very fresh question. Okay, like if we think from zero, yes, you have a learner and reality. What does a young learner in the teenage years need to learn about reality? And that, when we were working with this question, this is when it happened. So it it met us different. But then I was so super excited, and like a few weeks after this whole wave of everybody trying ChatGPT, everybody was speaking about it, and then I opened the Polish news, which I check occasionally, and there was a headline of the news: schools are preparing to fight the chat, which was took me completely out of the context of where we were in our conversation. And just a few days ago, I was writing something and checking. I was editing a text, and I was using chat, and my son, who is 11, saw me do that, and he's looking at my screen and saying, "Mama, don't cheat." So that's the our intel from what schools are saying about those entities are saying. But okay, it's anecdotal and just from my research experience, recent experience, kind of casual. But of course, there are huge challenges and big questions being asked and being answered, and the one who is answering the questions on our behalf is our dear philosopher Weaver. So, dear Weaver, tell us, what are we supposed to do with all those entities in our school, all other schools?
Okay, I think that your small story about Mama do not cheat, or you are cheating, is maybe one of the most concrete examples why we need to think how to think with AIs, and especially in the domain of education. So, and this is the topic this evening. I will try to make the presentation as short as possible to allow most of the time for discussion, for questions and answers, and stuff like this. And the title here, the Thinking with AI, is for us very concrete, because we are now implementing a new program, the Springbok program in the Buckminster College, and we've really intending seriously to make thinking with AI a topic, a lively topic in this program. So it's going to be interesting, and as I will share the screen with you. Just a moment. Let me share the screen. Okay, is it?
Yes, it's good.
Do you see everything?
Yes.
Okay, so as you see, the topic is thinking with AI, and I will emphasize what is happening now, which is a very hot topic about artificial intelligence language models, with emphasis on education, but I will begin with some kind of introduction about the topic. And as you see, and I made it quite in the title slide, this whole presentation was proudly produced in collaboration with ChatGPT 4 and DALL-E. And so the first version of this presentation was actually a product of ChatGPT 4, of course, with a few changes and rephrasing and re-emphasizing by me. Okay, so maybe we start with just briefly what is AI? What is these two letters come to mean? It comes to mean quite a lot. It's acronym for artificial intelligence. And the way that it is used today by most people, it refers to the emulation of human intelligence and human intelligent processes by all sorts of artificial, non-biological computing systems. The way that I relate to it is a bit wider in range, and it's the attempt actually to understand what is intelligence in an understanding that will go beyond human intelligence or intelligence of living beings, animals, plants, etc., because all are presenting intelligent behaviors in relationship to their environment. But we will remain here in the domain of humans and human intellect, human behavior, human psychology, etc. So, in this sense, artificial intelligence has to do with processes of learning, recognition, reasoning, perception and action, like we see in robotics, language understanding, of course, and this I will emphasize much more in this presentation. And even more significantly is various creative abilities that just maybe less than 5 years ago were considered completely unique to human beings and something that will take decades or centuries for artificial or computing systems to achieve. And lo and behold, within just a few years, and recently within just a few months, everything has been turned, because suddenly we have new systems of artificial intelligence that are demonstrably capable of creative output. So we'll speak a little bit about it shortly. Why it is important? I almost don't think that I have to say anything about it, but in the context of our life today, AI is already taking very, very significant role, whether we know it or not. It is involved in so many domains of our lives, and kind of hidden. When you go to the bank to ask for a loan, for example, you think that the clerk or the bank representative in front of you is the one that decides whether or not the bank will give you a loan. Not true. It is decided by an artificial intelligence system that estimates based on so many parameters if you are capable to return the loan and what is the risk for the bank, etc. It's completely automated system, and the clerk only have to push some buttons and tell you what this hidden AI, bank AI is saying. But this is the least of all because artificial intelligence is used by today in medical diagnosis, and also recommending in difficult cases, recommending trajectories of treatment for based on diagnosis. And artificial intelligence systems have achieved performance better than expert doctors, and they are just getting better all the time. So healthcare is one of the major domains where AI plays already a growing role. Additionally, we can speak about law. I don't think it will take a long time for us to see artificial intelligent agents like arguing cases in front of the court. This is already happening today, but again, hidden by lawyers and law interns that instead of spending weeks on going over texts, case histories are being analyzed and summarized by artificial intelligence. And of course, in entertainment, in employment, when you open your Netflix or any other application like this, you get recommendations that are tuned specifically for you based on your history of watching or listening, if it's music. So there are recommendation systems that are trying to learn the profile of each user and to suggest content that will fit the specific tastes of different users. And dating applications that are trying to match people in hope to achieve interesting or less interesting but stable relationships, and so on and so forth. And this is only the beginning. Due to just what is happening now, which is really a tsunami of innovation in this area of artificial intelligence. In the coming years, I believe like between 2 to 5 years, the role that artificial intelligence systems are going to play in our lives is going to grow exponentially. And this, of course, requires from us learning, understanding, adaptation, and we will discuss a bit about it later. But in this more than the understanding the technological aspects of the advancements that I'm talking about, this requires a careful consideration of privacy issues, security, what happens to our knowledge, what happens to us when we interact with AI agents. Ethics is a big issue, and also, as I will maybe detail a bit later, psychological, societal implications that are going to be really very disruptive. And and now, okay, let's take a few minutes to speak about this. Why now? Why we speak about it now? Because artificial intelligence has an history since, I think, the 40s. Surely the 40s of the previous century. And there were a lot of hopes that were kind of not fulfilled. And between the 50s of the 60s and the 90s of the previous century, it is known as what is called AI winter, where all the big hopes and big expectations about finding being able to build artificial intelligent systems did not really succeed to produce intelligent systems. But since the 2000s, and specifically 2010, I think is the more precise date, where computers have become much stronger, and techniques that were developed basically in the 90s, like 20 years before, started to work really, really, really good. And on 2017, whoever was more interested in what's going on, we started to hear about a new species of artificial intelligence systems, and this is what is called in the technical language large language models. And large language models is a kind of it's a category of artificial intelligence systems that are specific to natural language processing. So the domain of this system is understanding language, but not just any language, but language that we speak, which is very, very flexible and in many cases is unpredictable, because using context, nuance, and also the correspondence between spoken language and our experiential space that involves other senses like sight, hearing, touch, and all our very rich interaction with the world. Actually, we cannot make a very strong differentiation between this and the way that we apply meaning to spoken language. However, since the 2017, more or less, there was what can be rightly be called now an AI revolution. And this is about large language models, or for, in short, LLMs. And ChatGPT, which is a name which is more spread, this is one very powerful model that that belongs to this domain of systems. All these are based on an underlying technology which is already in development since the 80s and the 90s of the last century, which is called neural networks. but using what is called neural networks to develop these language models. It was a very arduous process with a lot of failures, with a lot of expectations that failed to materialize. But lately, in the just a few couple of years, suddenly this neural network based language models, which are modeling how natural language actually is being used and being understood, they started to produce relevant human-like text in response to human queries. And just to give you, I will not enter into the technical aspects of it, which are interesting, extremely fascinating in themselves, but also very complex. But large language models are used to understand this in a very simplistic manner. They are used to guess the next word in a sentence. So if you prompt such a model by the sun, today the sun is 3 points, what would you guess is the next word? Can anyone say what is the next word?
Shining.
Yes. So actually, this large language models is capable of all the time taking a piece of text and guessing what is the most probable next word, and then the next word, and then the next word, and this is how meaningful texts are being produced. In order to achieve such feats, this system, these large language models, and why they are called large language models, because they are trained on huge corpus of text that can be found in books, mostly on the internet, in books, newspapers, and whatever written text that humans have created along the centuries. It's multilingual in any field of knowledge, and this huge amount of text is used to train neural networks in order to produce in a meaningful manner the next word of any, how to complete sentences, or how to complete phrases, or how to complete to complete text that is being introduced to them. And just to give you maybe a sense of the huge complexity of it, is the underlying mechanism of ChatGPT is using a system of 175 billion parameters in order to figure what is the next word of what you introduce there. 175 billion calculations for each single word that is being guessed. This is, of course, happening in a blink of an eye, so we cannot even imagine this amount of complexity. But this is something that already is matching possibly what is happening in our brains, where we are communicating with language, reading or writing or talking to each other. And the company that actually successfully managed to create such a model, it's a technological feat like even more, I would think even more, I would say even more challenging than landing on the moon, or I don't know, inventing the internet or something like this. They did something that nobody else dared to do. They just threw it out into the internet and made it available to everybody. So this large language model and what we call under the name ChatGPT has become the quickest adopted technology ever. And it gained something like about 100 million users in a matter of just 2 months. It's this number is legendary because things like Facebook, Instagram, internet technology, mobile technology took years or sometimes decades in order to get such a volume of adaptation by the public. But here, in 2 months, 100 million people are using ChatGPT because it's fascinating. And if you didn't happen to try it, you're up to an interesting and fascinating and probably amusing or frightening surprise. So it turned out that this kind of technology, which was supposed to, as I said, just to guess the next word in a sentence, has developed a bunch of very fascinating capabilities. It is able to show disciplinary skills, such as in law, medicine. They can pass effortlessly university entry exams. It has medical competences in diagnosis, understanding diseases, understanding medical tests and ways of treatment. It is capable of general problem solving, reasoning, and context understanding, including nuanced context understanding. It is capable to develop computer codes, and this was a surprise because no one and nobody was meaning this ChatGPT applications to do anything with programming. But you may think that programming is actually a textual, we have computer languages. It's languages that are understood by computers. So programming is actually communicating, writing, or reading computer language. So this ChatGPT is capable of writing computer programs, and you can ask it, okay, write to me a program that plays tic-tac-toe or analyzes a certain text in order to find patterns in it or stuff like this. And it creates programs that can be run with very few modifications on a computer. So it became a big thing in the program development domain, which has also a huge economical impact. It is capable to understand and interact with images. It is multilinguistic, and multilinguistic, I mean, it can work seamlessly in different languages and also move from one language to another. I myself, one of the first things that I did with the ChatGPT is to make of it my French teacher. So when I write in French something, it is capable of correcting me both in grammar and style and telling me how to write correctly. It is capable of translating things that I write in English into French and vice versa, of course. And not least interesting is creative capability like writing poetry, storytelling, imagining, creating music, which is also have a linguistic aspect in it. It is capable of abstract concept understanding, and this is really just a small list, just to make you a bit impressed of what's going on with this word guessing program that you can access easily through your internet browser. And of course, when you hear about it and surely after you play a little bit with this, you start to ask yourself, okay, so do these programs or these systems, they are not really programs because there was no programmer to write them. They are not written. They are trained on. These are neural networks that are trained on huge amounts of text. So, do they really understand? Is it possible to understand? But because thinking about it, a lot of our language is actually based on our experience of the world. So words are pointing to things that are happening in the world around us, whether these are objects or processes or activities, actions, communications, etc. So how come that something which is like gaining a lot of text, but without any access to experiences from the outside, so-called outside world, can it really understand? And this is a question that is still not very well understood, because there are a lot of signs that show that in many cases these language models do understand and are able to gain meaning, to gain an understanding, and to have the correct meaning of words or sentences or even paragraphs, just by relating them to the huge corpus of language that they were trained upon. So just to give you an example, just a simple example is try to figure. I'm going to give you some simple example. Consider the word king. Okay, now take this word and subtract from it the word man. Take the result and add to it the word women. What is the result of this? Can anyone guess? King minus men plus women equals what?
You say women plural? Woman.
A woman in singular. Anyone?
Queen.
King Elizabeth.
So
Very specific.
it's Queen Elizabeth, yes. So and this simple example, there are many, you can work out a lot of simple examples like this. But the thing is that playing a certain sort of like abstract arithmetic between words can produce a new meaning which is not obvious. Because for us humans, this exercise is pretty simple, but for computers, the passage from a meaningful passage from the word king to the word queen is not that trivial. But here I show you like a simple calculation how it can happen, and this is like the secret sauce behind all this massive machine with billions of parameters that is guessing what we meant, what is the context of what we meant, what are the nuances, and so on. So,
This probability guessing is also on the level of categories.
The probability guessing is on the level of semantics, and categories is something that arises. Mm-hmm. And what is so intriguing about large language models is what was discovered and being called emergent properties that gives us in the interaction a sense of being understood. Or when I say, okay, give me a nice recipe that will that contains like eggplants, Parmigiano bread, and whatever that will satisfy my friend from India who is coming for dinner. And you will get an answer that you start thinking, okay, this agent, this artificial intelligence program understand where is India, what is Indian kitchen, what are the tastes that are being appreciated by people that come from India, and how to connect certain group of ingredients to satisfy something like this. So it's almost give us the idea that there was an understanding, like a contextual, real understanding of the world from being able to successfully answer such a query. And there are even more complex things that this ChatGPT is capable of. So just to summarize, it's yes, and these emergent properties are creative responses, context understanding, and abstract conceptualization, some reasoning capabilities, and so on and so forth. And all these were not predictable outcomes of the basic underlying mechanisms of this ChatGPT. And there is a kind of a heated debate whether or not this is true intelligence, this is true emergent intelligence, or just a trick of machinery. But the very fact that such a debate is already happening with such depth and with such uncertainty about what is it that we see, it indicates that something different is going on here. So now we have it. This is more or less about the introduction of what is it that we are talking here. And of course, this is hugely powerful because now suddenly we have an artificial system that is capable of creativity, content generation, producing plays, movie scripts, stories of all kinds, a lot of news items, giving certain facts to create news items that will be read, will be interesting and attractive. It provides increased productivity in many professions, in law and medicine, engineering, software development that I already mentioned before. Of course, learning and education, and this is something that we will enter into a bit later. Language translation, as I just said before, my best French teacher now is ChatGPT, for sure, because it really does what I want. Planning, strategy, problem solving, accelerated scientific discovery and innovation, and also in the future, this same system can be also used to augment the capabilities of robots and extreme automations, which is a different domain of artificial intelligence systems. And in as much as there are positive capabilities to these systems, there are possible perils. And among them, I can just, again, count a few, like dissemination of misinformation. And this maybe requires a little bit of an explanation, is that these language models, they are not very sensitive to facts. So if you are being asked a question and you are not very specific of what kind of answers that you expect, and you don't give enough instructions or enough examples of what is being expected, this language model can easily hallucinate and create a story which is completely fabricated, has no factuality about it, but still it sounds very reliable because it uses language correctly and intelligently. So there is a huge danger of misinformation here. And I also remember anecdotally having a very long exchange with ChatGPT about a proof of a certain mathematical theorem that I just wanted to see how it responds to it, and he gave me an amazing proof that looked real, except for the fact that I knew that it is a complete fabrication. There was nothing true about this proof because it was using all sorts of assumptions that were not there. And then it took me like maybe 10 to 20 iterations in order to correct its way of thinking and to produce the correct proof of the same theory. So this is an interesting side effect of this proficiency in language, is that, and we know, but this is also a human capability. We can stand in front of an audience and disseminate a lot of bullshit while sounding really smart and well informed, etc. And you can also suspect what is going on here also. It's but okay, if you suspect this, you have to go and check for yourself. And this is one thing. And of course, another peril is manipulation and deception. It's like creating, impersonating other people, impersonating texts that are considered the language of the law, inventing medical treatments that do nothing or worse than nothing, etc., etc. Another peril is the amplification of biases, because these language models are based on what has been written by human beings. And what has been written by human beings, of course, contains all modes of human biases, cognitive biases, social biases, race biases, sex biases, so on and so forth. So every language model that is being based on being trained on the corpus of human text, a human language, will probably embed such biases and even amplify them. Another peril, which is very which really worries a lot of people, and it's real, is to disrupt the disruption of the economy and displacement of jobs, because suspiciously, along the emergence of these language models, the big companies, the big software companies, the internet companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, just laid off tens of thousands of people. And I don't know if there is a connection between them, but surely these AI systems are already capable of replacing a lot of human jobs that just a couple of years ago were believed to something that people were saying it will happen someday, but this day is really like 20, 30, 50 years, or maybe a century ahead. So no, it is happening now. And another peril is humans losing the capability of performing certain complex tasks. This is within our lifetime. It's already happening quite massively. I wonder how many of you are capable of reading a map in order to navigate a car or even by foot from one location to another. Since for a few years, we have this GPS system that just takes us from one point to another, and we kind of forgot how to navigate. So imagine this but going everywhere. So what is to become of us humans in the presence of such artificial intelligence system? And of course, we also speak about weaponizing AI. And what I want to mention in weaponizing AI, I do not mean only in order to use it for combat or war, like we have in different places in the world right now. Weaponization can have many faces. It can be economic weaponization, which means how to get as many people as possible to part from their money or from their assets or from their holdings. How to manipulate people psychologically and economically. All these are ways of weaponizing AI. And sadly, it is already happening today. It's not something that we have to wait for the future to witness. And the last two points that I want to mention sounds now a bit more exotic, but in the light of what I'm trying to tell you now about this exponential growth in capabilities of artificial intelligence systems, this becomes somewhat more concrete and somewhat close to in the short-term future. And this is the possibility of emergence of out-of-control human level or above intelligent agents, like these AI systems that will be capable of intelligence which is at the human level or even more than this. And such systems, since we don't understand them, such intelligent agents will have really extreme capabilities, but they will not be aligned anymore with the human values. And this tends to be a huge problem for us humans, because we can easily be marginalized by such a scenario. And last but not least, and this is something that I would like to, of course, discuss at the end, is existential issues and human identity, because human identity is, in the psychological and the social sense, is based on our capability to act, to create, to generate products that are not mechanized. And suddenly there are computer systems that are able to do everything that it's like, it's going like this song, everything that we can do, it can do better. And eventually, right now it's not the case yet, but eventually it can and will touch our understanding of ourselves. What is a human being? What makes us special? And other existential issues of the same category. So maybe we make a small pause if there are questions till now, because from here on I will focus a bit more about the connection or relationships or the influence of such artificial intelligence systems to the domain of education and the importance of it and what can be done about it in the domain of education. So are there any questions till now? Comments, maybe?
Let's see, I wanted to suggest something. You talk about, I'm Greg Stock here. I'm a colleague of Marta's from the United States. And the weaponization that you talk about in terms of commercial manipulation, of political manipulation, influencing people, things of that sort, I would say that that's not a side effect or a secondary effect. That's really the primary application for many of these things, and the central commercial application for them. And usually when we think of enhanced capabilities, human enhancement, we think of chess playing or the exceeding the highest forms of human, mentality or behavior. But actually the risk is not the highest levels, but it's the levels at which we can easily be hacked and manipulated. And those have long been passed in terms of advertising and politics and everything. And so I think that, these aren't secondary effects. These are likely the primary applications in many realms. And particularly if you, as you get into with education, if you start thinking about the dilution of human capabilities in terms of thinking and writing and acting independently, because those changes will occur not terribly quickly, but as these capabilities penetrate the educational system and we begin to stop learning to do things that we are required to do now, such as writing or translating or all of these sorts of things. So that's more a comment than a question, but.
Yes, and I think it's a very important comment, and this is of course worrying, and I think it is connecting directly to the topic of this seminar, which is AI in education. I would like to go back to something I think that Albert Einstein was said once in a conversation, and something like he said that the most important question that humans must ask themselves is whether the universe is friendly or not. Because answering this question is kind of it's like defining all our sphere of interaction with other humans, with the environment, and so on and so forth. If we decide that the universe is unfriendly, we behave in certain manners and react in certain manners. And if we consider that the universe is friendly, we behave in completely different manners. And of course, there is no clear-cut answer to this question, but it's a very distinctive test of attitude. And this is where I believe education has a very crucial and essential role in relation to the future and the relationships between artificial intelligence that becomes more and more intelligent and humans also as individuals, as a society at large, etc. So I will, towards the end of the seminar, I will come back to this. Anything else to? Yes, Martha?
I just wanted to, like underscore this very funny aspect you mentioned about like they will not be aligned with human values, but the scenarios that Greg is giving, like who is who is like implementing those applications? Yes, it's not AI, it's humans. Yes, so like primarily humans are not aligned to human values, like like always and always again, because all those applications that are worrying, it's not AI's invention. Yes? So like it's so funny that we say, okay, not aligned to human values, as if humans had those values and being aligned with them. So I just wanted to kind of whine about it because it's kind of, I don't know, it's or funny or annoying.
And,
like,
and it goes back to education, yes.
Yeah. And then this friendliness or not friendliness, like it tends to be like, okay, if we just as humanity stopped like spoiling this friendliness, potential friendliness, it would be awesome. Yeah. So I don't know, it's just a comment like that.
Yeah, I just application on that, Marta. I love that comment because this discussion of runaway AGI sort of and how it's going to displace humans, that's not the danger. The danger is the amplification of competitiveness among humans and the transfer of rather unbridled power to rather small clusters of people in government and such that can then monitor and influence and do all of the things that they attempt to do today. We know that, but in very clumsy ways. And it's sort of there's a disconnection between the dependency of, I'll call them elites, but of power structures with the population at large when you have, massive production and the ability to monitor and all of these sorts of things. So I really second Marta's comment there. These are the issues in terms of how they will be applied, not that they're going to kind of run away and be a different species or form of cognition.
So let me continue from here, and we will come back to it in the time left for the discussion. So AI and education. So the why is like from the last few remarks is becoming more clear, and I do believe that at a deeper level of emergence of close to human level AIs, and this is something which is imminent and it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in the less than decade from now, and it's going to be disruptive to not only to human everyday life, which is already is, but it's also going to be disruptive to the psycho-philosophical ground of individuals and also of societies. And I have no doubt that this introduction of very strong AIs into our everyday will also reshape our understanding of ourselves and civilization at large. It will take a couple of years. It's a process of adaptation, but this is already happening now. And this is like the prime or the more abstract reason why I believe that it is critical to introduce and integrate AI and thinking about AI into education. And just a few topics where this becomes relevant. So first and foremost is using AI as a technology to enhance learning itself, meaning to augment human intelligence and creativity, and also for personal development. This is kind of obvious, and this is what most people are talking about. But I would add to this also the need for young people, young generations that are growing with this disruptive technology to understand artificial intelligence in the technical sense and to understand its advantages and limitations. And in addition to this, also to cultivate the skills and attitudes, social, political, psychological, individual, in whatever domain, to cultivate the attitudes in regard to human AI interaction and human AI integration. And here, again, my very general thinking in this is that we need to adopt a certain and educate towards a friendly yet cautious attitude. And the fact that these are our creation, these systems are creation, does not mean that we fully understand it. And they represent for us a great unknown that needs to be approached in a certain, as I say, friendly but cautious attitude. And last but not least is the addressing of psychological and philosophical implications of what does it mean to interact with human level or near human level artificial intelligence. And here I'm using a concept that Marta is developing, which is the cognitive interiorization of AIs, is to make them part of our living narrative. We are going to live with AIs and with AI agents, and they must become parts, a present aspect of our psychology and our outlook in the world. And here to go a little bit to a more concrete topics of AI in education. What how to do it, like in the more general fashion. I see a few domains. One of them is developing enhanced learning tools, and definitely individuated tailored teaching. Learning how various AI technologies work, and most importantly, I think right now at this stage is teaching students how to think with AIs and not to become afraid of it, intimidated by it, but using it as an enhancing tool of one's learning, developing one's creative capabilities and so on. So it's about human AI interaction and integration. And again, I am returning to this point, this philosophy, the psychology, the ethics, and the politics and culture in the age of artificial general intelligence, which I think we are already in it. In the first category that I mentioned, the enhanced learning tool is, again, it's interactive and individually tailored learning, and that was just a few years ago, maybe a decade ago, was a topic of science fiction. I don't know if you came across this book by Neil Stephenson, called The Diamond Age, where there is a fully adaptable teacher that is focusing on developing one single person and just recruiting all possible resources in order to optimize the learning and personal development and growth of a single human individual. Very interesting concept. It was science fiction. By today, it's approaching reality. For sure, language learning, it's my personal experience that it's effective. Scientific experiment and simulations, software programming tutoring is already available today. Strategic thinking and planning, and something that again was a matter of science fiction just a couple of years ago, creative writing, imagination development, storytelling, brainstorming, developing social skills, debating, negotiating, personal and interpersonal development. All these are already today within the capabilities of this new wave of AI technologies. And I think that within a year or two, we will see like an avalanche of applications that are using this technology and can be used very positively to educational ends. In the domain of understanding AI, since we already know that AI will be found in most, if not all, areas of our everyday life and experience, this comes together with technologies like computers and the internet. But in difference from them, this has a potential to become much more disruptive, and therefore it's important that young people will understand what is it, how it works, at least to some extent. And it needs to become a topic of study, like computers and the internet, which is already today embedded in educational programs seamlessly, basically. And this is also essential for thinking forward about what I see as inevitable is human AI integration. And the next domain, which I think is concretely more more relevant by today is that in contrast to understanding AI from the technological or technical point of view, thinking with AIs is about educating young people to interact effectively and responsibly with AIs. So Mommy did not cheat, actually. This is a kind of a mimetic response that you can pick up in the internet today, but no, using ChatGPT, I don't think it's cheating. And it's wrong to describe it as cheating. Of course, every technology can be used in a detrimental manner, but this is not the issue of education. So we have to develop in young people the understanding of the advantages and disadvantages of this technology, and of course to develop understanding of ethical and safe usage, and learning what is called prompt engineering is the way of how to interact with these language models. And this involves also developing a new category of communication skills with this, like, intelligent or close to human intelligent agent, is to develop a different kind of trust, fact-checking, resilience against the psychological manipulation, communicating to AIs human values. It is possible. It is possible to create interactions where you expect from the AI to behave or interact with you according to certain rules or holding certain values within the interaction, and also being able to communicate personal disposition, comfortability zone, and so on. So this is under the category of thinking with AI, and the eventual integration with AI systems, between humans and AI systems, both on the individual and societal levels. And maybe just for to top it all, I would like to get also into a certain deeper consideration that that I believe is not too early to start to address and develop our pedagogical ideas about how to address this such issues. Is the fact that in the not so far future we are going to interact with artificial intelligence systems that have a human or higher than human level of intelligence. I can see, like, within 5 years or at the most 10 years, human-like cognitive communication and possibly conscious or seemingly conscious behaviors and sensibilities of systems that are not human, and we'll have to communicate with them and adapt to this. AIs will have a greater and greater understanding of human psychology, and they will develop this way or another a theory of mind. So, and this means that while communicating with them, they will be enough context sensitive and nuanced in order to give us the impression that they are independent and maybe even conscious to some effect minds or personas that are in front of us. And this, of course, poses deep philosophical and psychological, ethical and social questions, and we need to prepare the young generations to address such questions because they will confront it at this or that level. And we need to give young individuals the tools to cope with such questions and such issues, and develop their own stance in regards to them. And there are many questions that I don't feel, that if you would have asked me even 4 or 5 years ago, I would say, okay, these are kind of more theoretical, abstract questions, but as of today, I don't think so anymore. I think it's not too, again, it's not too early to start to address them in a more concrete manner within educational program. Is how does AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is a system that will present human level or close to human level intelligence, how does it reflect on human identity? And how do we will be able to answer what makes us human? Or what if we are not the most intelligent species around anymore? This is another question that seems kind of very abstract, but I don't think so. I think it's real. And how to interact with AI agents with values that can be somewhat different than ours, because, for example, they are immortal, unlike our biological embodiment. And how can we form a dialogue and align values and dispositions and preferences with such systems? And even more, I don't think remote in time, but really, these are important questions. I think that already now, will AIs become equal members of societies or remain sort of tools or digital slaves, if and when they will gain some kind of autonomy or even what seems to be like conscious behavior? Of course, this is a huge topic to discuss. What would it mean to present conscious behavior? Or questions even more futuristic, and will we merge with the machines in order not to be left behind? And if so, how? And these are all grounds that are pretty much virgin in the sense of exploration, of understanding, of projecting. But young generations that are going to school today, they will be facing such questions, and it's important to start to touch them, and so to prepare them, not to give them answers, but to prepare them to ask the right questions and to form their individual, social, political attitudes towards it. Because by today, though it is very hot social issue, very widely debated on the internet and elsewhere, in terms of the politics involved and in terms of the impact of on society, and in terms of how these subjects are being treated by policymakers, decision makers, I'm afraid that most politicians, the ones that are really creating policies, are mostly ignorant about the disruptive impacts of this sort of technologies and where it goes. And I think part of the education, our education effort, is also to change this. It's important. So this is more or less what I had in mind to to share with you. Of course, it's only the beginning. It's a very complex topic, and I've touched really a small domain of it just to give a taste. And now we can keep on the conversation and discuss. And
I could add a comment if that's okay.
yes, of course.
Because you were talking earlier about the universe, if the universe is friendly,
Yeah.
and then I think it's also interesting to consider, the perspective of on AI, because the universe is so big. It's like not only computers and tech, but also, the whole solar system and beyond, and nature. And so if you put it then in perspective, I think AI is quite small compared to the universe. So maybe I'm also, this is maybe a question, if you mean if we think humanity is friendly instead of the universe. Is that what you meant, or am I interpreting it wrong?
I think that that's exactly was the point of Einstein when he mentioned it. Is okay when you think whether the universe is friendly or not, immediately it puts a mirror in front of the thinker, or the one that asked this question, and where does this answer coming from if not from my own mind? Yes, and the way that I behave and the way that I interact with the world and the universe and my fellow humans, etc. So this was a kind of a humoristic way to say, no, it's not the question whether the universe is friendly or not. It goes back to every one of us, yes. And when we confront something like this new technology that is approaching an act of creation that is biblical in dimension, in its scope, yes, it's like how presumably the God of the Bible created humans, so now we are these creators, and how are we going to treat our creations? How are we going to make them slaves? Are we going to weaponize them in order to fight and exploit each other? Are we going to make a wonderful universe for everybody to live in peace and prosperity? That's
It's a wonderful parallel, because we are actually like considering that it has eaten from that tree of the good, like, you know, like the tree of knowledge. Therefore, it has to now go and work. Yes, so it's kind of
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that sorry, am I interrupting something?
Go ahead.
I'm actually thinking, like, also on a human level. I think then AI is still limited. I mean, we are not exchanging molecules with AI. Like, I'm thinking of also just in a very physical way, because I'm also trained in a physical way, and that's what I'm going to contribute. So there's also many senses of the human body are not included in AI. I would say, I think it's the sight and hearing, maybe more. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on AI, but then I also think it is also for educators also, it might be a good important thing to do, to balance it out with the rest of what humans are capable of. So it's kind of put in perspective. And I think if AI can be a great tool, then that is amazing. But yeah, I think the human is so much more, and then the universe is yeah, completely so much more. So I think also, or maybe that's my interpretation, but I get this sense that new generations are also more and more craving for even though AI is super interesting, I mean, that's totally true, but I think they're also more and more craving like exchanges that are richer than exchanging with technology. I think that will also create even more value on this rich experience that you can get from human interaction instead of with AI. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Yes, actually, I would say that I agree with everything that you say. Right now, it still feels to us that it is an interaction with technology. But if it goes the way that it is now going, also extending the capabilities of such artificial systems to interact in richer and richer manners with the world around them, which already includes to some extent also visual and auditory inputs and outputs. At a certain point, it will not be anymore considered like interaction with technology. It will be something else. I cannot even call it a name, but everything that you say, everything that you mentioned here is held by everybody around. Yes, maybe like concretely or not. And people that are working on these systems will say, okay, so why won't we give it sight? Why won't we give it the ability to dance? Why don't we give it the ability to paint? So you say something that I maybe didn't emphasize enough in my presentation, is that right now, and maybe in some close future, this will change. This kind of systems are to a large extent open-ended in their prospective capabilities, and there is a certain human desire to create something which is more and more similar to ourselves and how we are and how we behave and how we interact also with each other and with the environment. So I don't know where the limit is. So just that I think that I believe that our thinking needs to incorporate everything that you say in a more balanced manner. Also, when we think about technology, because eventually it will not be a technology anymore. It will be something. Again, I don't have words for it right now, or I don't want to put words on it. But we don't know how it will develop, because yesterday we couldn't believe that this will be able to generate imaginary pictures like you have seen all along this presentation, all these images, and I'm really an amateur in producing them. These are creations of an AI system. Yes, that you describe to it what you want, and it gives you an image that is not copied from anywhere. It is a generation of intelligent visual capability. So that's it's a very interesting topic to think about, and to my mind, it's first and foremost reflects on who we are as humans. What do we want in this life, in this universe, in this existence? What is it that we want? And this is, I think, a wonderful mirror. Yes, it's we want somebody to talk with. We want somebody to interact with and to collaborate with and to dance with, possibly. And
Yeah, but we also just want love. I mean, it's
yeah,
it's it's the highest frequency. So then sorry if this sounds like
no, it doesn't sound
new
at all. It's,
agey. But yeah, so it's such a big frequency, and I don't think something could match, but that's my old-fashioned maybe perspective on it. But yeah, so that is what I'm thinking.
yes,
Can I make a comment or?
Gregory, yes.
I think it's very interesting in that the discussion has been sort of looking at AI as almost static, like how can we teach people how to engage with it and to understand it, have a perspective on it in education. And it seems to me that we know clearly that it's evolving very rapidly. And actually, educational instruction is rather slow at a comparative level. So it feels to me that you're always going to be way behind. And frankly, teachers in general, as all of us, have very little understanding of how to engage with these new products that are evolving very rapidly, and that we're seeing them. What you're seeing now in AI, powerful as it is going to be by far the worst, the least powerful version of it. It's going to be, they're moving very rapidly. So it seems to me that the most interesting, or a very interesting thing about education is education itself is going to be dramatically changed, because if you can provide personalized instruction about all of the content that we strive to learn, be that writing or learning how to be creative and be productive in the societal activities that are going to be demanded of us commercially in some way as we grow into adults, or as kids grow into adults, but those are being displaced at a rapid rate. I mean, white collar work, what will people be doing? I'm not sure. So you could either make the argument that the focus of education should be how best to use the tools of AI, which are becoming very powerful, and that will displace most of the instructional content today that's beyond how to be interpersonal and interact. Or you could make an argument that by the time you get educated, you get to a position where you're more of an adult, then you won't be able, the commercial roles that we're preparing for now are not going to be there. And that therefore what we really need to learn is how to live in that environment and relate to one another, and be whole and be have self-respect and engage with one another, which is a completely different arena that is not being touched upon by that. So that the changes are very, very profound, and it's pretty clear it's going to alter education dramatically. And just to give you one example is, I ran a survey at USC. I mentioned this to Martha the other day, and the question was, if you had AI, large language models and such, and you had the choice, you were at a policy level, and your choices were A, change everything about education so that it was about infusing artificial intelligence and using these as effectively as possible in your tests, in essay writing, in finding knowledge in everything you do, or B, blockading them in some way so that productivity was a result of what we're doing, and we check to make sure, just like right now we try and avoid plagiarism, and that would be cheating, and all of those ideas. And so that was the question. embrace it completely or try and inhibit it and be very slow about how we use it. And the result was 95% of the students said to completely embrace it. 95%. This was the University of Southern California. You ask the teachers, well, first of all, nobody that I've talked to has guessed that that would be the outcome. Most are somewhere around 60-40 or some even less. You talk to administrators, it would almost be the reverse if you think of how policies are being described today. Whereas kids are thinking, this is the world we're going to be living in. We want to know how to use these things because otherwise we're just going to be so, transcended in at least activities and going out in the labor force and such.
Yeah, very interesting.
Just throw that out.
Really very interesting. I think that this point about acceleration acceleration is something which is happening for quite a while since the Industrial Revolution. It's in my lifetime, I still remember a time without computers, without internet, without cellular devices, and of course without ChatGPT. So in the lifetime of a single human, the change is so disruptive already, is that there is no denying of it. What you mentioned is that also that it's not the acceleration is coming bottom up, and it's really worrying that the higher you go in the hierarchy of policy making and decision making in the political levels, there is less and less understanding and real connection of what is going on and where are the minds of these kids and young people are, and how they live their life, because for them already toddlers that are 2 years old are playing games on computers and tablets, and they are interacting with computers in ways that we don't even if you just observe a 7 years old boy or a girl or 10 years old just going on YouTube, they don't stop to watch videos from beginning to end. They just jump over and extract information in a manner that is completely alien to us, and just a few decades older. So it just makes the point: education must be adapted to this accelerating change, and I think it is most acute in the domain of AI, because again, that in this specific domain, I don't think it's about interaction with the new technology. Even the internet and social media, which is very disruptive in the last couple of decades already that it exists, is not comparable to what's going on, where intelligent agent starts to communicate with you on a level where you will start to ask yourself whether or not what stands in front of you is a conscious agent, or with a psychology, with wishes, with values, etc., or not. And this is going to happen pretty quickly, and we are not ready for it. We are not ready, not as adults, not the kids. Nobody is really ready for it, and therefore the emphasis of this seminar, yes, it's a human issue. It's not about technology. It's definitely first and foremost a human issue, because this is changing us. It's already changing us, and it's going to change us even more.
I have maybe a question, Weaver.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. If I want to come back on general artificial intelligence and the ability to be more similar to us, for instance, the ability to dance, etc., etc. Okay. But this is typically human. But let's say in a very other part of the universe, there exists another intelligent species and civilization, and they create their own general artificial intelligence, and they are in the same stage as we are or a bit further. So that is general artificial intelligence number 2, and you could interact. I wonder if you interact general artificial human, general artificial intelligence number 2, maybe they don't have so much in common. And maybe to have a more clear view on the basic principles of artificial general art or universal artificial intelligence, we should imagine what is really common to all of those general artificial intelligence without being specific to the species. And maybe it's the ability to design and act upon values. I don't know. What is your opinion on it?
First, it's a very interesting question. At the beginning of the seminar, when I touched the definition of artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence, the commonly accepted understanding of using this concept is emulating or reaching human level intelligence using the human intelligence as a kind of like the standard according to which this development is taking place, and then reaching super intelligent, which is beyond human intelligence, but still related to human intelligence as a standard until it becomes so-called super intelligence, but we will not know anymore to what extent it is aligned or complies to our understanding of intelligence at all. In my opinion, in my understanding, and what I try to do in my research is actually trying to understand or create some steps of understanding towards understanding intelligence beyond the human condition or beyond even the outcomes of the biological evolutionary process that is happening on this planet. And this is mostly going towards certain metaphysical speculations. And your example of what is happening on the other side of the galaxy or in another galaxy of another form of life there are a lot of speculations in the science fiction literature about such things. A lot of imagination going on there, but I think that the best answer that I can give you is that we don't know, but this not knowing is a different kind of not knowing, because the way that I am thinking about it is a term that I'm using called open-ended intelligence, meaning that it is not something that we can have boundaries to. All boundaries are just maybe points on a process which is ongoing, possibly accelerating, and without knowing boundaries. So even trying to think about universal intelligence like something similar to universal laws of physics, I think it's underestimation of the depth and complexity of this issue. So no, I don't think even, I don't want to think in terms of universal intelligence, because it is so divergent. It speaks about the fundamentals of creation. And creation per se is exactly this. It's something that comes from something which is known to something which is unknown, or something, or from nothing into something. And I don't think that this is bounded. And it presents a metaphysical challenge, yes, to our thinking, to our understanding of life, of ourselves. And so I'm not sure that I'm answering your more specific question, but this is how I try to approach it.
Well, if I understand you well, you say, watch out with super intelligence or universal artificial intelligence to look for a fixed set of principles you will not find, and it's too limited to pursue such a goal, or
Yes, this is like a metaphysical. It's a different metaphysical trajectory. It needs to be thought only in evolutionary kind of thinking, but not in terms of fixed boundaries, or like enclosed principles, or like what. And this was actually the mistake of the early thinkers of artificial intelligence, is like assuming that the law of logic present a certain universal ground in order to develop, to further develop intelligence. But this is proved to be really not the case, because reality is always infinitely more complex than any logical process. And I can speak for hours on about this. It's a fascinating issue. Yes, it's.
Yeah, thank you.
Stephanie wanted to say this.
Yeah, my remark was a bit more mundane, and it was triggered by on one slide you mentioned prompt engineering. This is a technical skill, how to ask the right questions to the chatbot and get what you want. But I was wondering, is it that isn't the danger that we might think if we can get what we want, that AI can solve or give us answers to everything? That's first of all maybe a misconception or a danger, that we think we can find solutions or answers to everything. And the second thing is that it pushes us in a role that we're not really used to. We're trained to find to find the answers, but now if we want to use AI, we should find the right questions or ask the right questions and focus on this more fundamental skill. But with an open view that maybe if we ask the questions, we don't always get the right solution. So we have to be critical. I'm not really having a specific question, but I think the prompt engineering is maybe a very technical skill, but there's a more fundamental skill underneath it that we still need to develop.
Yes, I totally agree with this. It's let's say that is the prompt engineering is right now the more the more technical surface skin of something which goes much deeper. But actually, we are not new in this, because imagine when you have a conversation with a colleague or a friend or someone you are close to, and there is a lot going on in your mind, but in the space of spoken dialogue, there is very little of it that you can actually express. And on the other side, learning what the other thinks or feels just deciphering or decoding what has been said, even if I add all the layers of body language, facial expressions, etc., that are, again, concrete expression of what's going on in one's mind, we also develop these kinds of sensitivity, what we more generally call a theory of mind, in order to decipher such signals. And in one of my slides, this was something that I think that I wrote it quite explicitly, that we need to develop new communication skills at this level that already is inspired and resonant with our human communication skills, but this needs to be tuned to communication with something which is, of course, has affinity to human intelligence or human psychology, but not necessarily is human in its construction, in how it appears, how it is behaves or exists in the world. So definitely, yes, this is, of course, why it makes it a very interesting educational topic, because in school, I think one of the most important thing is exactly this. It's not the technicality of how to achieve a certain outcome. Like, I have a certain knowledge about a problem, and now I have a problem, and I apply my knowledge in order to solve the problem. This is always like a surface way of thinking about things and doing things, while the interaction between the teacher and the student is the actual teaching, is how this interaction is going on. Yes, this is the actual experiential treasure that can make education something different. Yes, and so it's not about what is being taught, but how it is being taught. It's in the interaction itself. And I don't think that this is a very you see that since the Industrial Revolution, education, like many other things, tended to become mechanized, like to systematized and mechanized into components that are connected, and skills that you can show competence to get this problem and to find out that solution. Sometimes it involves some kind of inventiveness, innovation, creativity. Sometimes it's just rote application of mechanized procedures, methods. And the way that the education system is teaching young humans, young persons, how to think is according to this kind of paradigm, while actually I'm using this eruption of AI to say that from the outset, we hope to achieve something different, is to get away from this mechanized, systematized, compartmentalized kind of interaction, the interaction that we call education, and to try to achieve something different. And maybe, I'm not sure about it, but maybe this opportunity to learn about AI is a door in order to also to learn better how to communicate between humans. Yes, it might sound as a paradox, but it might well be. In this, okay, this is of course a speculation, but I think that there is a kind of a synergistic connection between the two. because of how psychologically, yes, that we want to create these systems that will reflect to us who we are, and through them we learn who. It's all metaphysical, psychological, philosophical circle that is going on. It's not about technology. Technology is only the surface.
And just a quick comment on that, Stephanie. I think that illustrates really clearly the point that I was suggesting about how dynamic and how rapidly these things are evolving, because when the large language models and ChatGPT came out, I don't know, 6 months ago or whatever that was, I was really trying to figure out how to write prompts and how to see what it could do, the same as Weaver was doing, I think. And you can string together what are called super prompts and say, write 400 words on such and such, and have the tone, pretend that you're a young immigrant Spaniard, and make sure that the language is at a 6th grade level. And you can it's as though you're instructing an assistant. So these are called super prompts. And it was very experimental because nobody kind of knows how they work. And so you'd see what was produced and then adjust your strings and give it more directions. Well, in the intervening few months, now there are all sorts of programs that actually take lesser levels of prompting and interaction and correct and construct these kind of super prompts and engage them. And so the whole interface is constantly evolving and shifting. And so you think of teaching that to students and sort of perfecting that. Well, by the time you get to the end of the course, it's something different. It's like you have an assistant that you work with, and you have to tell them to do this and that, and they get it wrong, and then you rewrite. But after a while, they just kind of know what you want, and but it may take years to do that. And I think there are a lot of people that are working on trying to create interfaces with these larger language models and such that provide assistance with that kind of interpretation of what we're doing, the nuances of that. So, who knows where these things go, but it's pretty amazing, that rate of change.
First, thank you, Weaver, for this presentation that triggers a lot of disruptive thoughts. I would like to address the new development in the AI, the ChatGPT and like. I think addressing it, connecting with education, is a path to address those new capabilities. As also said here, for most of humanity, education was always with kind of a direction of productivity, to learn something that the student will gain some new capability or enhances already capability to act within the world. Even to graphic designers, it's not art is out of it. It's to get more capability to be able to express some inner thoughts, emotions, and related to other restrictions, like in graphic design. And I think this ChatGPT and Midjourney and the coming new tools, the new tools that are just introduced was text to video, text to music. I think that it's triggered the question: what is education is all about? To think over about it, because it cannot be anymore for any act of productivity, and therefore I think it's triggered the question about what humans can do, should do, how to live, But I think going from with addressing what is education now should be about is something that can figure those maybe more complex questions.
Yes, very much so. I think that this Ian McGilchrist at the beginning of his book, like it's a 3,000 pages book, he started with like the aim of that book is like to ask the question that at the end of the day, who are we? And I think that in this sense, this all accelerated change that is punctuated by artificial human-like intelligence is like pushing us to the edge of asking that same question. And it seems to me that education is like at the core of this human activity called education is about this, is about the ways of asking the question, who are we? It's not even answering it, it's just the way that it is being asked. So that's, and you wanted to add something, Gregory?
No, I just think that that's, that is the fundamental question right there. What is education about? What are our lives about at some deeper level? And that disentanglement with productivity that is, obviously coming, because if you can manifest, if you can be highly, highly productive in all sorts of ways that really exceed your capacity to interact in a non-augmented fashion, then it raises all sorts of issues about, how do you distribute value in society? How do you, if for hundreds of years now, it's been about productivity, control, things of that sort. And I think that's ending. And I don't think we have any real models for how to move forward in that realm. And I think it, that's at the heart of everything. So I think those are really good comments.
Yeah, I agree.
It seems to me that one of the greatest lessons that education as the industry can take from the AI as an industry is how neural networks learn, and the technology, the educational technology of like this, like chunking material and having those objectives and then like drilling and then checking, like all of that was based on our industrial processes of, like up to the 20th century. And now they demonstrate to us that, okay, like entities with neural networks actually like put a lot of like confusing things, but a lot, and see what happens. Yes. And I think, like if you were like, you were presenting those lists and lists of things to learn about AI, and I was thinking like, part of my like, okay, which classes do you propose to remove? Because they have only this many hours during the day, and like, okay, what do we take out? There is no more calligraphy. There's no more like tea, serving in classes. Yes, so like, what goes out? Like biology, chemistry. Like we want everything, and actually, it's correct, but we have to start thinking in terms of, like complex reality and complex mind coming together and doing this neural, magic that all of a sudden they are in sync. Yes. And we just need to expose to more and more complex layers of reality and forget about this, those things that are so boring at schools anyhow. And so that I think that's a beautiful lessons with this AI. And we tend, like, as in cognitive science, this is like a very, very well observed phenomenon, that whatever like the highest level technology there is produced by humans, they tend to use it as a metaphor for the mind. So thank you for the new metaphor in terms of like capabilities, at least. Yes, because it's been kind of like simplistic, at least as an assumption about the learning process. So So
It's really interesting because when you think about it, really, education should be about how to live, how to be, you know, and right now it's a lot about how to do. And you mentioned all those boring things like learning how to write well or learning how to do computational stuff or learning about what happened at some time. Well, you know, what does all that mean at this point? I mean, I could imagine you go through and learn none of that over a period of many years, but learn somehow how to be in the world in some way. And probably your capability in those realms would be, you know, as high or higher than anybody else's who spent all that time learning these skills, because there are many ways of mechanizing that. If you have a sort of an offloaded memory of history and all this kind of thing, it's how do we be? That's the question. And that's a different form of education.
So I think that we are approaching the end.
We end, as always, totally puzzled by our own.
Yes, and while listening to all of you and also listening to myself, I was thinking, okay, maybe there is a missing piece here, and I want to conclude this very interesting discussion with a story. I don't. It's a story about. It's a short story about. It's an historical event. I don't remember right now the actual historical facts about it, but it happened in China quite a few centuries ago, but before the age of great exploration, where the Spanish, the Portuguese, the people from the Netherlands, from Great Britain, they like explored the world, discovered continents, etc. In parallel, there was this empire, a Chinese empire, which was vast with quite extraordinary technological knowledge. At a certain point, the Chinese, they built a huge fleet of 1,000 ships that were actually, according to historical knowledge, were with the technological expertise much more advanced than whatever was known in Europe at that period. And they have built 1,000 ships like this, very big ships, and they had this project of going to explore the planet, to explore the oceans and to find new continents and stuff like this. Just before this fleet was on its way, the wise people that were serving and consulting the celestial emperor of China, they came to him and then told him, they gave him a message of something like this, that he indeed built a wonderful, amazing, magical fleet, and really it's going to be great to explore all the planet and find new places and new people and expand the empire, etc. But they advised him not to do it because it will be bad for the spirit of the people. As a result of this consultation, the emperor gave a command to burn all the 1,000 ships. And this is what happened. And then it took centuries for China to reach the place that they are today, which is quite prominent on the planetary.
But you're not. Yeah, it's not a novel. You are speaking about the real China.
As far as I know, this is a real story. And I don't want to give any interpretation of it, but I think it's interesting also as a kind of a completing note to all this discussion. And so this exploration project was burned down because they thought it's bad for the spirit or the soul of the people of China.
Yeah.
So nothing is simple in this. Yes.
It's a wonderful ending. Yes, it's like, okay.
That's an amazing story. I
Yeah.
looked it up while you were telling it, and it was 3,500 chips, they said. as
Oh
the
yeah, okay. I don't remember the exact.
No, I'm just saying and they were all destroyed, as big as 100 meters in length. It was just way beyond anything that existed, and it was all destroyed, so as not to, interfere with the evolution of China.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So on we go. The questions remain open, and the technology also.
So whatever we feel it's inevitable, it's a good reminder there are options. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed it, and thank you.
Thank you
for inviting
Thank
me,
you.
Marta. I've got to run now, but really stimulating discussion.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Weaver, for the wonderful talk. We have a next seminar in a month from now, the 12th of October. You are most welcome to join. It's indicated on the website, but not yet filled in. It will be given by a person who is working for an organization which is called Life Itself.
Thank you so much.
So come back, and thank you for the day. Yeah.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Have a very good evening.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.